This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider. The bars of England came back to life last weekend as landlords welcomed customers back after months of lockdown. This was the atmosphere in an open-air venue in Brixton. But for three pubs, the joy for patrons and publicans alike has been somewhat short-lived. The Lighthouse in Burnham-on-Sea, the Fox and Hounds in Batley and the Village Home in Gosport have all had to temporarily close again after customers tested positive for coronavirus. Well, the Evening Standard's Go London editor David Ellis joins me. And David, will this worry the industry at all?
I think that there will be some in the industry, just as there will be some in the public, who do take this as a warning sign. But I think for a lot of the industry, they'll take it as a heartening sign that their colleagues have really been paying attention. All three of these pubs have mentioned that they're tracing the customers, they're in touch with people who came in, and they've put out their warnings. And not only that, they've immediately shut down. They're not taking the risk. I think that's a really important thing for people to take away from this. It's not as if three pubs were discovered to have said that they'd had corona and were trying to get away with it. They're being very upfront, because I think from a lot of people that I've spoken to in hospitality over the last couple of days, they realise there's not really a second chance. They need to get this right. And if they don't, there's a risk that we go back into lockdown, which I think for the vast majority of people is something that they don't want. And also, if it were to happen, would have an enormous impact on what's the third largest employer in the country when you consider hospitality at large. And that has ongoing effects for, potentially decades.
Yeah, I took a wander to a couple of bars on Saturday in East London just to really kind of have a look around, because it was quite a historic day and I wanted to see what it looked like. And I was surprised that in one of the bars I walked into, I was almost immediately grabbed by the arm at the entrance by someone saying, no, we have to have your name, we have to have your mobile number just in case something happens. And I got the impression that everywhere was taking everything quite seriously. Was that reflected across the rest of London too?
So interestingly, I was in Soho, and of course people will have seen countless photos of the streets being very crowded. And I was in a pub on Dean Street, the French House, which is a very famous pub, and the French was busy. But as I came in, and I know some people there, no, you can't come in, there's not a table, why don't you come back a little bit? And I was like, great, okay, they're observing. And as people came in, lots of regulars in that pub, it's that kind of place, people going for hugs, staff no, all elbows, if they were doing that at all. And a lot of them were just saying, it's so lovely to see you, but I really can't. And then tables were distanced out, there was hand sanitizer for everyone. And the respect for people's space felt like it was a key priority for the workers there. I popped into a restaurant at the end of the evening, just to further up the road, and I said to the guy running it, I said, have you actually been taking addresses? And he said, of course. Like, I have to. I only have 25 covers. If something goes wrong here, I need to be able to get in touch with everyone who was in. And I was really impressed, because part of me, when I saw those guidelines come out, thought, surely places won't actually adhere to this. But I think, again, that idea that they really don't want to get this wrong has meant that many restaurants and bars are actually really sort of digging in and doing it properly.
And comparatively, given the number of bars that opened at the weekend, is it surprising that only 3 have now closed down?
Yeah, think about the pubs in the country. There are tens of thousands, something around 60,000 pubs. For, of course, not all of them reopened, but to say that 3 have come out, I think that is such a tiny, tiny figure that it does really need to be taken into account. Of course, it makes a good headline. Pubs have to close immediately. But then you read and you go, 3? 3's not so bad, is it really? And as far as I'm aware, I've not heard of anything from the countless thousands of restaurants that have reopened up either. And I think when you consider that together, I think it really says something about the fact that most places were fine.
You're the editor of Go London, David.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there to do that isn't going to the pub?
It's all about if you feel comfortable and if you want to go out. But there are other things that you can do. The London Zoo has been open for a while. I know they've got very strict measures. Kew Gardens We have some galleries opening up. Obviously, commercial galleries have been open for a while, so you can go around, but the National Gallery is leading the way this week, which I think is fantastic. I was in the cinema, actually, on Sunday. I went to the Everyman in Hampstead. I don't have a huge TV at home, but I didn't think that just seeing it on a big screen would be such an impactful experience. It was strangely moving just to be there with other people. There was a palpable sense of excitement. People were having Aperol Spritz and sort of really just enjoying being out there. And I thought, gosh, it really is an idea that we've just missed being out with other people. And, of course, everyone was sat 2 seats away from each other. All the staff, again, were wearing their masks. Everything was delivered off a tray. You weren't having too much contact. There is lots now that is opening up across London. And I think they're sort of following that guidance quite carefully as well.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.